Once upon a time, there was a little girl. Once her rich father married an evil stepmother. She settled in the house with her two daughters. Their faces were beautiful and white, but their hearts were evil and cruel. And then came a difficult time for the poor girl. From morning until late in the evening, they forced her to do dirty work, carry water, heat the stove, cook food, wash dishes, and do laundry. And besides, the half-sisters did their best to upset her as much as possible. They mocked her, poured peas and wheat into the ashes, and she had to sit and pick them out. In the evening, when she was tired of work, she had to go to bed not in bed, but on the floor, next to the stove. And because she was always in ash, dust, and dirty, the sisters called her Cinderella. But then it happened one day that the king started a feast, which was supposed to last for 3 whole days, and called all the beautiful girls of the country to the holiday so that his son could choose a bride for himself. When the two named sisters learned that they, too, could come to the feast, they instantly began to dress up and preen. Cinderella also wanted to go dancing, but her stepmother did not let her go, because she had no dress or shoes, and she was dirty. And then the evil stepmother poured a bowl of wheat into the ashes and said that if Cinderella collected it in 2 hours, then she could go with her sisters. Cinderella went out into the garden and cried. And then 2 white doves flew in, followed by a whole flock of different birds. They swooped down on the ash and began to peck, and so they chose all the grains in a bowl. In less than an hour, they finished their work, and everyone flew back. Cinderella brought a bowl to her stepmother, began to rejoice, thinking that she could go to the feast. But her stepmother would not let her in any way. She turned her back on Cinderella and hurried with her 2 daughters to the ball. When there was no one left at home, Cinderella sat down on the floor and cried with grief. And then 2 white doves flew in, followed by a whole flock of different birds, and they threw off their dress and shoes shiny and all in gold. She quickly put on this dress and came to the bride. They saw her stepsisters and stepmother and thought that it must be some strange princess, she was so beautiful in her golden dress. It never occurred to them that it was Cinderella. The prince came out to meet her, took her hand, and they began to dance. And he liked Cinderella so much that he did not want to dance with any other girl. She danced until the evening and wanted to return home, but the prince asked her to see her off. He wanted to know whose beautiful girl this is, and where she lives. But Cinderella ran away from him and climbed onto the dovecot. The prince ordered to destroy the dovecot, but there was no one in it. And nowhere near could he find his beautiful stranger. No one could have guessed that Cinderella was rescued by pigeons that took her home. The prince was upset and went to the palace with his head down. And suddenly he saw a shoe, lifted it up. It was so small and elegant and all of pure gold. The prince guessed that when Cinderella ran away from him, the shoe from her left foot remained on one of the steps. The prince was delighted and ordered to find the mistress of this shoe, and to whom it suits he will marry that one. The parents returned from the ball. They saw that Cinderella was asleep in her shirt on ash, and a dim light was on by the stove. Both sisters went to their rooms, hoping that tomorrow they would be lucky enough to put on the golden slipper. The next day, the prince came to their house and said that everyone who wants to try on the shoe of his future wife should come out. 2 sisters came out, and the stepmother locked Cinderella in the house and did not let her out. The older sister tried it on a small shoe. The younger sister tried it on the shoe as great. The prince was about to leave, but Cinderella climbed out of the window and ran out to him. And she put on a shoe, and it just fit her. The prince looked into her eyes and recognized in her the very beautiful girl with whom he danced. He took Cinderella, put her on a horse and rode off to play a wedding with her. And he ordered the sisters and stepmother to be locked in their house, and never let them out of there. This is how they were punished for their malice and deceit.
A long time ago, a miller kept a donkey. For many years, the donkey did hard work and was an indispensable helper for the miller. But the years passed, and the donkey became old and weak. He could no longer work at the mill, and the owner did not have the means to feed the animal. So, after a little reflection, the miller took the donkey out into the field and left him. The donkey stumbled on the spot for a long time, not knowing what to do. Suddenly he decided that he would go to the glorious city of Bremen to become a street musician and earn his living by playing the guitar. The road to the city took the donkey into the forest. For a long time he made his way through the trees until he met a sad dog lying on the grass. She had run a long way, and now she fell exhausted by the road. The donkey greeted the dog and asked why she was sad. Then the dog said that he used to be a great hunter, and such that not a single prey could escape. But now he has grown old and can no longer chase game. Therefore, the owner drove him out. The donkey thought a little, and then told the dog that he was planning to become a street musician. Suddenly the dog jumped off and barked happily. It turned out that he knows how to sing and plays the drums well, and therefore does not mind keeping the donkey company. On that and decided. Now the donkey did not go to Bremen alone. They walked through the forest together, and each sang in his own way as best he could. And then they met a cat on the road. He was so sad that the newly made friends could not pass by. They began to ask the cat why he was so unhappy. It turned out that the evil mistress drove the cat out of the house, because he was old and can no longer catch mice. Then the donkey conferred with the dog, and they decided to take the cat into the group as a violinist. And so the animals continued on their way to Bremen, until they met a rooster on the way. He sat on the hedge and crowed with horror all over the cock's throat. Friends spoke to him and learned that the rooster had escaped from the hostess, who considered him old and decided to cook soup out of him. Without thinking twice, the donkey, the dog and the cat called a rooster into the group, giving him a balalaika. So, the newly made troupe walked through the forest until night fell. Friends had no choice but to settle down for the night by a large tree. The donkey and the dog lay down from below, the cat climbed onto a branch, and the rooster sat on the very top of the tree. Suddenly a light flashed in the distance.
What?
The rooster perked up his senile eye and noticed the hut in which the light was dimly burning. Then the friends decided to spend the night in a hut. But when they made their way to the hut and looked out the window, they saw their 4 robbers celebrating another successful robbery. Already pretty hungry, the musicians decided to drive the bandits out of their lair. And now a plan ripened in the minds of friends. The donkey fell on the windowsill, the dog sat on the donkey, the cat on the dog, and a rooster turned out to be at the top of the pyramid. Then the donkey started screaming, the dog barking, the cat meowing, and the rooster crowing. Frightened by the suddenly appeared monster, the robbers ran out of the hut in fear. And friends happily settled in the hut. They ate the robbers' food and went to bed quietly. However, the bandits did not want to put up with the fact that their lair was taken over. And then they sent one of the robbers to investigate. Under cover of night, he made his way into the hut, but in the darkness did not notice the cat and stepped on it. The cat scratched the bandit's leg in a rage. The dog bit his hand, the rooster pecked in the head, and the donkey kicked his hoof with all his might in the eye. So, the bandit ran out of the hut in horror and told the rest of the robbers that terrible giants had settled in their lair, from whom it was better to stay away. From that moment on, no one disturbed the friends in the forest house. They lived in peace and harmony and called themselves the Bremen Town Musicians.